How does the mechanic make to see if you have any play in the steering? He puts the car on a lift. Here in my case, the car is on jack stands. I'm in the right front of the car and I turn the wheel left to right. And do you hear? I have some play. Now, how can I be sure that the issue comes from the steering and not from another parts? Well, I do the same gesture by putting my hands up and down, and now I have no play. That means the issue doesn't come from the bearing or from other suspension components. Now I do the same thing on the left side. I have no play like that. Nor like that. So I have no issue with the front left. It means that the problem is only on the right side. So there are two possible parts that can cause this issue. The outer tie rod end, which contains a ball joint, and the inner tie rod, which also contains a ball joint on the rack side. This ball joint is protected in a bellow. The issue may be with one or both parts. And how can I know which part to replace? Well, it's very simple. I remove the wheel that has some play in the steering. This is the outer tie rod end, and behind this is the inner tie rod, which is connected to the steering rack. Here I have some play. I need to know if the play comes from the ball joint of the outer tie rod end or from the inner tie rod, which also has a ball joint at the end inside the bellow. To check if the play comes from the outer tie rod, I take it like this, and I rotate the brake disc here like this. And I feel nothing at all. I have no play at all, so the play doesn't come from the outer tie rod end. So it certainly comes from the inner tie rod. I take it here, I go forwards and backwards. And now, yes, I have some play. So this part must be replaced. Of course, to replace the inner tie rod, it will be necessary to remove the outer tie rod end. So this video may interest you even if you have only the outer tie rod end to replace. It is on a Renault Clio too, but the operation is similar on most cars. Let's go. Hi everyone, I turn the wheels to the left to have more clearance. As I'm going to remove this nut here and loosen this one here, I add a little penetrating oil. I remove the ball joint nut here. The size is 17. If I do that, I can't remove it and it's normal. So for those who don't have a ball joint separator, you can hit in the corner here. In my case, it doesn't work, and since I have the tool, I prefer to use it instead of hitting something. So the ball joint separator works like this. I just slide the shoe here between the rubber protecting the ball joint and the hub assembly. It comes to press on the thread of the ball joint. I advise you to protect your face by wearing some glasses. And now I loosen the screw size 13, which is used to block the outer tie rod end on the inner tie rod. So it's not tight, it's just used to keep the wheel aluminum on setting. The setting is adjusted here, and so as not to change it too much, I will mark the thread on the inner tie rod with white correction fluid. I also count the number of turns it takes to remove the outer tie rod end from the inner tie rod. The goal is to stay as close as possible to this setting with the new part. Well, if I turn like that, it does nothing at all since the inner tie rod turns at the same time. So I block with a wrench size 13 and another one size 19. Now I count the number I turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 24. 24 turns. I'll keep this part because it is in good condition. It has no play at all. And here I confirm again that it is the inner tie rod that needs to be replaced. Look and listen. I take it here. There is some play. Well, to see a little more clearly, I remove the plastic cover under the car. I mark the position of the bellow on the old part in order to put it in the same position on the new part. Now to remove the bellow, I remove the clamp which is attached to the steering rack. It is a plastic clamp, so I will also refit a new plastic clamp later. Now I remove the bellow. And since I don't want to erase the mark when made here, I cut it with scissors. Here is the bellow. Of course I will refit a new one later. Now I have to remove the inner tie rod. This is here. I have to unscrew it, but you can see that it is difficult to pass a wrench because there isn't a lot of clearance, so I advise you to use an inner tie rod tool. It looks like this. It will allow you to remove the inner tie rod easily. Inside there are wheels which will tighten on the ball joint, and this will allow you to remove the rod but also to tighten it correctly. So this tool works for ball joints with a diameter of 35 to 45 millimeters. Unfortunately, the ball head on this car is a bit smaller, so it won't work, but I show you anyway. I put the tool here, and I see that I'm obstructed by the frame, so I turn the steering to the right. And now I see that the tool is too large, it doesn't take the ball joint. And yes, I would have needed the tool of a smaller size. This tool is available for diameters ranging from 28 to 35 millimeters, but since I don't have it, I will approach it differently. So be careful, what I'm going to do is ugly. Yes, I will remove the inner tie rod with the adjustable pliers. However, if you want to keep the part intact, I advise against doing that as it will be destroyed. And here the inner tie rod is removed. So the old part is here, and watch, or rather listen. I do that. There is a lot of play. I compare it with the new part. It must be the same. So know that on the Clio 2 there are two different assemblies. There is the TRW, Lucas, Girling assembly and the SMI assembly. The two assemblies are not compatible. In my case, it is an SMI assembly. And I think the thread here isn't the same. If you don't have the right part, you just won't be able to screw your rod onto the rack. To know which part to buy, you have to look at the marking on the rack because the manufacturer Renault cannot tell you which assembly it is without looking at the car either. The nut here is not useful for me since the outer tie rod end has its own locking screw, so I take it off and I report the marks I made with the white correction fluid for the position of the bellow and the position of the outer tie rod end. Now let's assemble the new part. So it comes with a ring like that. I'm not using it because there wasn't that part on the car. Of course, on everything that deals with steering, I put thread lock. I don't want it to loose. Now I put it in place. I have to tighten it to 50 Newton meters. Of course, do it with the inner tie rod tool if you have this tool. Mine is too big so it doesn't work, so I use my 32 millimeters wrench. It hardly fits, so I push it a little bit with a hammer. And I tighten as much as I can, like that. Done. This play is normal. It is in the direction. It is an axial play. Now I refit the bellow back on, and here is the new bellow. So the bellow is like the inner tie rod. There are those for the TRW Lucas Girling assemblies and this for the SMI assemblies. I took a bellow for the SMI assembly, so it is delivered without clamp and without grease. If you want, you can add some grease inside, but as you can see, there is already in the ball joint. I do not add any. In fact, there was none before, and the bellow is mainly used to protect the ball joint from dust and small stones. It's okay, I haven't erased my white correction fluid mark. Now I turn right, it will be easier to refit. I put it around. So if you have a little trouble getting through it, you can heat it up a bit with a heat gun. Now I put on a new clamp. Here it isn't moving anymore. So here there was no clamp, but I put a small clamp anyway. I put it where I have made the mark. Now I refit the outer tie rod end. This one is recent, it has no play, so I keep it. But if you refit a new tie rod end, be careful because sometimes the parts are different between the left side and the right side. Now I turn 24 times, and normally I stop at the mark when I've made with the correction fluid. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 24 turns and there. Oops, there is a gap of 1 turn with the white mark. I turn 1 time and I'm right on the white mark, so the purpose of the adjustment is to be able to drive a little while perform a wheel alignment. You have to do this one anyway, as soon as you change these parts. There I tighten the screw which holds the adjustment. There is no point in tightening it too much since it will have to be loosened when perform the alignement. Now I'm going to put the outer tie rod end into the hub assembly. This is a nylock nut, as I have already used, well, I put thread locker. I tighten it to 37 Newton meters. I block the brake disc with my knees. Since I put grease on the discs, I clean with brake cleaner. I refit the plastic undercover, and I refit the wheel back on. I tighten to the specific torque once the wheels are on the ground. Oh yes, here I am going to lift up the wheel a little bit to show you. I have no play at all. And now what to do is to perform a wheel alignment. I hope this video has helped you. You can share it, put a thumbs up or add comments. If you want to be informed of the next videos, please consider subscribe to the channel, and see you soon on Enjoy Wheels.